Welcome to Pique Your Interest, your go-to podcast for all things mortgage and real estate. Hosted by Tanner Greenwald and Tim Velasquez. We bring you expert insights to help you buy, sell, and invest with confidence. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to Pique Your Interest. I'm your host, Tim, and today we're going to talk about something that you have definitely seen, but probably have not paid much attention to. If you look at the bottom of any email that I send you in my email signature or my business card or any kind of mortgage document, you will see my name as it legally appears, Timothy Velasquez. And then you'll see a string of numbers just after that, and that is my NMLS ID number. And I think a lot of people think that that's just kind of a red tape corporate type of thing, but it really is a meaningful number. And I'm going to tell you and every real estate agent listening why that number is so important. So the NMLS ID was created in 2008 after the financial crisis. And it was a result of basically the world of mortgage banking being like the Wild West prior to 2008. You could wake up on like a Tuesday morning and you could say, hey, I want to go do loans. And you could just go start originating loans. There wasn't any kind of formal training or testing or licensing or anything that was required as a result of that. You could do things that were pretty unethical. And if you got caught, you could just move to another state or go to another company. And, there was no repercussion for it at all. The NMLS changed all of that. And so, it's a permanent registry that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has created, the CFPB. The CFPB sort of oversees all things financial in this country as of right now. And the NMLS ID gets assigned to you when you pass a licensing exam and you register with the database. You get that number, and that number stays with you for life. And so really, the nice thing about this is that the NMLS has a website that you can use. And this is really what I want to talk about today. So there's a website called NMLS Consumer Access.org. This is a public site. Anyone can go there, and I actually encourage people to go there all the time. And whether you're a buyer looking for a house or you're a real estate agent, it's a really useful tool. And I think it's useful for a couple of reasons. One, it tells you where a certain loan officer is licensed. Like, it tells you what states they're licensed in. You can't just wake up and decide that you want to originate loans in Maryland or California or New York. You have to obtain the license for that. So you have to take the testing. You have to, take the class, pass the test, register in the database and get that license before you can do it. And again, prior to 2008, you did not have to do that. So now there's a layer of protection in place. So when you're looking for a mortgage and you're talking to somebody, you can actually just look up and see if they're licensed in the state that you are talking to them about buying a house in. So that's kind of an important one. Number two is, and this is what I think is maybe the most important, the one that I tend to focus on the most is, in this NMLS Consumer Access.org website, when you use a loan officer's name or their NMLS ID number to look them up, there is a list of all of their professional employers. And some people even go back as far as like schooling, high school, college, whatever schooling they might have. And you can list the employers that people have, you have worked with. And that's important because, one, it shows sound decision making. Is this somebody that's been with their company for a long time? Is this somebody that, values the consistency of, working with the same people for years and years and years, building great relationships, needing things at the last minute becomes a lot easier when you know who to call. But if you're looking and, somebody has jumped around from, internet call center to internet call center, there's questionable decision making there. And when you're trusting somebody with hundreds of thousands of dollars, generally want somebody that you think is going to make good decisions. So looking up the work experience, who they work for, how long they've worked there, how many employers they've had over their career, those sorts of things become important. And finally, another thing that you can do is you can look up any kind of litigation. If somebody has any kind of action against them, whether it's, a lawsuit or whatever it is, that kind of information appears in the NMLS Consumer Access website, and it sticks with you for life, just like that NMLS ID number does. And so, specifically for real estate agents out there, I know that there are some listing agents, when they receive a contract, if they don't recognize the name of the person that wrote that pre-approval letter, or maybe they don't even recognize the name of the lending institution, there are some real estate agents out there that take this and look at it, look this website up, look that loan officer up, and probably have a very frank conversation with their seller. Hey, I don't know this person. Their track record isn't that great. We may want to have a serious conversation before you accept this offer. Conversely, you may know that person really well, or you may recognize the lending institution, or you may look them up on the NMLS Consumer Access website and say, hey, this person has been in the business for a long time. They've been with the same employer for a long time. Clearly, there's something there. I feel better about accepting this offer. And so, whether you're a buyer out there looking to purchase a home, or somebody that's interested in refinancing, or you're a real estate agent, this is a really powerful tool. This helps you do the research that you need to do on who a loan officer is, how much experience they have, what kind of tenure do they have with their current employer. And like I tell people all the time, the more information you have, the better able you are to make good decisions. And I think I've said it on this podcast probably a million times. But I think it's a really useful tool. It's very relevant in today's market. After 2020 and 2021, there was a huge influx of people into the business. They're definitely not as experienced as other people are, and you need to have access to that kind of information when you're trying to make a decision about who's going to help you with, what is probably the largest purchase of your life. So I hope you learned something today. Don't be afraid to visit that website. Look up anybody you want. Start with me. My NMLS ID is 200561 for those of you that might want to look it up. But otherwise, hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time. Bye.